But I don't think that rapid release is an if you build it, they will come sort of scenario. And actually, one of the things I really think is terrible, I think the worst thing an author could do is work like for a year and a half, build up a series and rapid release it and have no follow through. And so what I believe very, very strongly is that consistency is far more important than anything else. And I think because it's all about setting expectations. And actually, one of the things I really think is terrible, I think the worst thing an author could do is work like for a year and a half, build up a series and rapid release it and have no follow through. And part of that is to make people understand that, like, hey, you know, not everybody can be Mal or Amanda Lee or Michael Anderle and pump out, 40 books a year. You have other things in your life, and it's okay if you can't do that. And if you can't, you have to recognize that and not kill yourself trying to write a billion books, and then work out a plan that will work for you with your life situation to put out the number of books that you can put out.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 195 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have an interview with Malorie Cooper. Malorie Cooper likes to think of herself as a dreamer and a wanderer, yet her feet are firmly grounded in reality. A 20-year software development veteran, Malorie eventually climbed the ladder to the position of software architect and CTO, where she gained a wealth of experience managing complex systems and large groups of people. Her experiences there translated well into the realm of science fiction, and when her novels took off, she was primed and ready to make the jump into a career as a full-time author. Since then, she sold nearly 1 million books. In addition to writing her best-selling science fiction series, she's written a book entitled Help! My Facebook Ad Sucks, along with some other books in that series, and regularly presents on advertising and productivity at author conventions. She shares her home with a brilliant young girl, her wonderful wife, who is also a writer, Jill Cooper, a cat that chirps at birds, a never-ending list of things she would like to build, and ideas. Lots of ideas. And Mal is a bundle full of energy, and we have a fantastic chat. And that's coming up later in this episode. But first, let's hear a word about this episode's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Findaway Voices. I'm going to share a news update from Findaway Voices about one of the new features. Now, Findaway Voices recently announced chapter naming was available with select distribution partners. So, Findaway Voices is always working with retail and library partners to improve the audiobook listening experience, and the latest feature that they've introduced is chapter naming, where authors can add a custom name for each chapter track. Your unique chapter names will appear in distribution partners that currently support custom chapter names, and for those that do not, track numbers will continue to be used. Now, they recommend several best practices when naming your chapters to ensure the best downstream experience for listeners. And they request that you utilize a simple standardized chapter naming format. Chapter number 1, : custom name. Chapter number 2, : custom name. Some important things to keep in mind is the name you enter for the chapter is exactly what they will provide to distribution partners. So double check the spelling, capitalization, punctuation. Listeners will see the chapter names you enter here, so avoid using profanity if you can and other vulgar language for chapter names. And before publishing, you'll have a chance to review your chapter names. Make sure the order is correct before publishing. Now, this is exciting to me because in my Canadian Werewolf series, I utilize chapter names, and I have a lot of cheeky fun with it. So, for example, in the novel A Canadian Werewolf in New York, the prologue, the title for the prologue is Prologue, : A funny thing happened on the way to New York. Chapter 1, : Not just another day of waking up naked in the park. Chapter 2, Finding the Time to Help Wally. Chapter 3, Cookie, Lend Me Your Sign. Chapter 4, A Scuffle in the Subway. Chapter 5, Little Flashback in a Big Yellow Taxi. etc., etc., etc. So I do have a lot of fun naming the chapters in this particular series, and so I'm going to take advantage of that. And if you want to see how you can take advantage of Findaway voices for your audiobooks, whether you're looking for a professional narrator or whether you're going to upload the audiobooks that you already have access and the rights to distribute yourself, you can check them out over at starkreflections.ca/Findaway. And now for a personal update. Now, Fear and Longing in Los Angeles, which is the latest book in my Canadian Werewolf series, came out a few months ago, is being dropped down to 99 cents for the first time between June 4th and June 12th. Now, I've paid for a New in Books feature. This is one of the features available from the good folks at Written Word Media. That's coming out on June 8th. So Written Word Media, these are the folks behind Bargain Booksy, Free Booksy, etc. And I've also crafted a pair of BookBub ads to start running from the 4th through the 7th. I wanted to see if I can give it a little bit more of a temperature ranking boost on some of the platforms before the June 8th promo hits, so it's not just a single day spike. So that's going on, and I'll keep you guys in the loop on how the promo goes. A little bit of an update is I did run Written Word Media Audio Thicket on May 13th, and so it's June 3rd as I'm recording this. And I didn't see a single sale. I didn't see a single audiobook sale from that promo. So for me, Audio Thicket didn't work. Now I'm wondering, because I went from a regular price of $9.99 for the audiobook for Canadian Werewolf in New York, and I dropped it to $1.99. And I wonder if I would have been better off with 99 cents. So again, I'm not saying that the Audio Thicket doesn't work, but maybe I needed to really go right down to the bargain basement 99 cents. So I may try that again, because I think it was only $29 or something like that. Now, the New in Books feature, I believe, is $299 or something like that. There's some... I'm looking forward to seeing how well that works, and as I said, I will let you know. I've neglected in my personal updates to talk about the various places that I've appeared or been. May 22nd, I did a 3-hour workshop on the business of being a writer with the Writers Federation of New Brunswick Writing Festival. And that was a fantastic afternoon hanging out with the writers. And then I did a social thing with them the next Friday night. And that was a really fun time as well. On May 22nd, I was on the first anniversary issue of the Words with Writers podcast from the Canadian Authors Association. So that was really exciting. And there's going to be a special additional episode with an additional piece of the interview that I did for that. On May 25th, I appear on The Book Break, Season 5, Episode 15, talking about my book Wide for the Win and Fear and Longing in Los Angeles with the awesome host, Melissa of The Book Break, and that was a lot of fun. And I am slated to speak on so many things, I keep forgetting to talk about them here. So on June, let me see, the first one is, June 4th, Friday, June 4th, which is the day this podcast is slated to be out into the world. I'm going to be on a panel as part of the weekend's Clubhouse, the author conference group, talking at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the topic of getting your book out to the whole world. Now, I'll be in conversation with Fatima Fayez, Dan Wood, Jen Falls, Tyler Davis, and Kevin Tumlinson. And that's on Clubhouse, which is a new audio-based app. If you're not familiar with Clubhouse, it's kind of like, I liken it to a combination between panels, and sometimes it can just be those really cool hallway conversations that you have when you're at a conference. And the great thing about Clubhouse, unlike Zoom and some of the other video chats, is a lot of people are kind of like Zoom exhausted, and they're frustrated because there's a bit of a class system with the camera being on, and what does your background look like, and what do you look like, and did you, I don't have hair, but, did you do your hair, did you put on your makeup, any of those things. And what I love about Clubhouse is you can practically do it anywhere, and it's audio only. So it really, in many ways, it democratizes the ability for people to connect and be part of things. They don't have to have a fancy camera or setup or layout or green screen or any of those things. So I do like that about Clubhouse, and I like the fact that it's another way to connect with authors. And Malorie and I talk a lot about connecting with authors and the importance, especially because she's an extrovert and loves that connection. She's obviously leveraged technology for that, but Mal and I both miss hanging out with people at the bar and doing things in person. So this Clubhouse gives you Again, it's not the same, but it gives you that ability to connect. Some of the other things is I'm going to be speaking on June 12th at the Heart of Carolina Romance Writers virtual meeting. Let me see, what else am I doing? I'll just stop talking about what I'm going to do because I have so many things coming up. And, I have a podcast episode every week. I can probably talk about that then. So that's it for personal update, for ad read, etc. Why don't we jump right into this fascinating conversation with Malorie Cooper. Hey, Mal, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to get a chance to chat with you. I mean, it feels like, how long has it been since we've seen people in person?
Gosh, you and I mean, I guess the last time you and I saw each other was the same time that was the last conference, which was 2019 November in Vegas.
Oh, Vegas. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking NINC, and then shortly after it was Vegas, right?
Yeah, because I didn't get to London for Mark Dawson's thing. So.
I didn't either. I was booked in. Did you cancel as well?
I did, because I just was worried about being stuck overseas and not be able to get back home, so.
That was the thing. I had a tropical March break trip booked for the Dominican Republic.
Oh my goodness.
And I was worried about being quarantined getting back from London. I'm like, but I only have a day and a half between getting back from London and going to Dominican. I don't want to be stuck.
Yeah, right.
So I canceled it, and then canceled, obviously. Everything just was so, wow.
Exactly. But yeah, it's crazy to think, like, it's been what now then? Like 18 months since like in-person conventions. It's crazy.
Yeah. So how has that been for you as a writer? I know you live with a fellow writer, but how has that been, like, not getting out and interacting with other writers? Are you normally like just wanting to be with people?
I'm that rare extrovert author, actually. So yeah, it's kind of weird that I'm an extrovert author. And I was, when pandemic started, I'm like, what am I going to do? Because when I worked out how much I was away in 2019 with prep for conventions, flights, being at conventions, coming home, and like a recovery day, 3 months of my entire year were consumed by conventions. And I was just like, I really need this external activity in my life. So that's actually why I started doing live streaming of my writing. And I have like a group of people that I live stream with. So every day I stream as I write for 5 hours, and other authors join in and stuff like that.
Is it 5 hours that you live stream? Well, I was thinking it was an hour. Wow.
No, I do noon till 5 every day.
God, are you going to join Mal? Because it's really great time to get some writing done. Wait a second. So 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
You do the live stream writing. Let's talk through the logistics of how does, I mean, obviously there's chatter at the beginning and kind of, hey, how's it going? Like that.
Yeah. So we used to do 20-minute sprints and then 10-minute breaks. And we changed that to doing 23-minute sprints and 7-minute breaks, because most people find the break was just a little bit too long. And so what happens is I chatter during the breaks. So we talk about all sorts of different topics. I'm on screen, of course. Everybody else is just in chat. We do it mostly on YouTube.
Okay.
Although you can do it on Twitch as well, as the other place we stream to. We talk about all sorts of topics. We talk about writing. There's about a group of maybe 30 or 40 of us. Usually at any given time, there's about 15 people that are on. And we've all gotten pretty close. So we talk about each other's lives. Like one of the authors is moving. We're asking like where he's found a spot. We're planning on meeting up. So it's really like we've developed this really close friend group. And I've made amazing friends who just happen to find me on YouTube when they just search for like author writers and stuff like that. We've built this really cool community. And we've got some people who are just starting out, and like people like Amanda Lee is there almost every day. Okay. Writing with us and stuff like that. So it's kind of this really cool, diverse group of authors. And so we do works out to 10 sprints during the afternoon. And I don't know, something like a solid 3.5, 4 hours of writing gets done every day. So I'm very strict. Like we could be in the middle of a conversation, and when the time comes to start the sprint, conversation stops and we write.
Oh, I love that. You got to have that discipline.
Otherwise we go off the rails.
Amanda Lee is one of the regulars. Is this like the cast of Cheers, where there's always the certain barflies that are hanging out?
There is, yeah. And we have people all the way from the Philippines all the way around the globe, back around to Ethiopia. Actually, no, I guess Miriam is in Qatar, so she's even further east than Ethiopia, I think.
Wow.
So,
are these writers you have met in person, or are there people who just found out about it and said, "Hey, can and do they have to be sci-fi writers?"
No. I think that there's only 2 sci-fi writers in the group. It's not genre specific at all. It's whoever wants to come and write. So my book is on screen, and people can actually. So sometimes my fans show up too, and they read what I'm writing.
We're watching you write too.
Yeah, you actually see my face and you see my Word document on the screen.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's brave.
I'm just all the way out there.
That is really, really brave. I was
Yeah.
in an event at Salon de Livre years and years ago where they actually had this, it was kind of like this boxing ring where these competing writers were writing live and we were watching on the screen. Now it was in French, so I didn't know really what we were watching.
Right.
You're watching them compose a story and it was like tag team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the round robin where one writer jumps in and then they had to add elements without, and then
Okay.
they wrote a story live while we're watching. And I was in book nerd heaven, even though I couldn't, I mean, I can kind of read French a little.
Yeah.
But so you're doing, oh yeah, your fans must just dig it. Like,
I have some fans that are there almost all day. And then I also stream music. Like we actually we talk about a lot of music and there's always music playing during the stream. So sometimes my fans will just actually they'll just listen all day, like never even talk. They're like, yeah, I was here all day just listening to your music. I'm like, oh, that's interesting and awkward all the same.
They're listening to your playlist of what you're listening to while you're writing something.
Yeah.
Now, do you have Spotify lists that your fans can follow?
Yeah, I do have. I have it's called Mal's Awesome Playlist. And I think it's got like 13 hours of music now in one playlist. It's
Wow.
Getting to be quite the beast.
What is this? I gotta ask, what kind of songs is it composed of? Like, what do you have in there?
So there's a shocking amount of, it's kind of funny. There's maybe only like 10 songs that have men singing. It's a pretty women heavy playlist.
Yeah.
Which I think is just kind of neat. It's I think exposes people to a lot of music they're not used to. And it's also like, I would say like 70% lesbian artists. And it's also a lot of people that you never knew were lesbians too. So it's kind of this cool thing for a lot of people to be like, right, really? That artist is a lesbian? So it's mostly pop, electronica. There's some metal. There's things like Hailstorms in there. There's we got a lot of classics, like some Sting that's in there and stuff like that too. So it's a pretty fun mix of music.
Is this the kind of music that you listen to only when writing, or is that just permeated throughout your life, or do you have?
No, it's the kind of music I listen to all the time. I listen to almost everything. Like I even listen to death metal and speed thrash and stuff like that. But that I don't put in the streams because some people just can't write to that. I think about maybe like half of the people do mute the music because they can't write with lyrics going on, or they want to listen to their own music and whatnot.
Wow.
So not everyone listens to my music, but a lot of people give suggestions, or sometimes I'll be in the middle of the stream and I'll look and there's people like, "What song is this?" You know, they're like firing up. What is it? That Genie. There's like an app that will actually tell you what song.
Oh, Shazam!
Shazam, that's what it is.
Yeah. Which I've had to resort to when we can't come up with it on our own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, the internet can do some good things for us too.
Exactly. Yeah. So that whole thing though, like back to your first question about like as an extrovert writer, like what I've been doing, this is what's kept me sane, is doing these streams every day.
Wow. And 5 hours. So I've got to believe that you've been pretty productive throughout this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not as productive as I was back in 2018. 2018, I was completely insane. I did 44 books in 1 year.
Whoa. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And I decided never to do that again because that's kind of insane. So now I'm down to about 20 books a year, and I've actually kept that up all through pandemic. That's
down to 20 books a year. I can imagine listeners going, down to 20 books a year. I haven't written 20 books yet. Well,
I'm writing with Amanda Lee, who does 10,000 words a day and then edits 10,000 words a day and is done by 3 p.m. You know.
Whoa.
And she
does
goes
Amanda start at 3 a.m.?
No, she starts about 9 o'clock in the morning at Starbucks and then goes for Pokemon raids around the mall. And by the time she comes on around noon, she's already written like 7,000 or 8,000 words and then does her editing. She can write 1,600 words in 20 minutes. Wow. She's unbelievable. I'm a much slower writer. I can only write about 300 or 400 words in 20 minutes. But lots of people in the group can actually pull like 800 to 1,000 words in 20 minutes. It's unbelievable what some of them
Amazing.
can do.
Did that change for you over time? Like in terms of being able to write in front of people or to write faster?
I write slower than I used to, which is kind of funny. But I think part of the reason why I'm writing slower than I used to is that I'm at 111 books now, but all of my books are all science fiction, take place in the same universe. So I have to spend a lot of time not writing the same thing I've written before.
Right.
You know, so sometimes I have to sit there and think like, okay, I've done that particular thing. I've done that particular thing. We've had this kind of battle here. I've introduced a character like that. So sometimes I stop and think a lot more to dig in. I think that slowed me down a bit. And also I'm trying not to write at a breakneck speed. I'm trying to savor and enjoy the process more. Because that year that I did those many books, there was a day I edited 10,000 words and wrote 14,000 words in one day.
Wow.
And I didn't enjoy that, you know? So I'm taking time to smell the roses, you know? And that's not to say that the people who are writing fast aren't. They just work differently than I do. And there may be a time come in the future again where I can write 10,000 words a day and just nail it. Who knows? Like, I feel like your writing speed and your productivity is not like a linear path going up, and it's okay to accept that sometimes it goes down for a while, you know?
I have to ask then the logistics, because you talked about writing in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine if you're making something up, like you're writing in a new universe, it's like, hey, I can introduce this character and sky's the limit. I can just make anything up. But you can't do that. If you bring a character in that has said something in this book, you have to, how do you deal with the contradictions? Do you have someone that helps you with that in the post-write edit, or like a story Bible, you have to pause and go back and look things up?
I have a really good memory.
Wow. Really?
I have no story Bible.
No fans have created something for you?
There's a really extensive TV tropes page for my universe, so there is that. But no, it's a universe that is so complex at this point that I think fans are daunted. A couple times they've tried to make wikis, and then they realize, because when you have a certain one character in like 40 different books, creating even a wiki for them, like, how do you imagine tell anything about that character without almost breaking into eras and filling it with spoilers and stuff like that?
Yeah. I can imagine the spoilers would be crazy.
Yeah, so it's something it'd be nice to do at some point, but thus far it's defied all attempts.
Wow. It blows my mind that you can keep all of those things together, because I mean, I have a series with only 4 books in it, and I can't even remember the last name of one of the characters.
A really important thing I find, if you're going to write a big series, is don't be specific about as many things you can get away with. Like, I think I've maybe mentioned the eye color of 4 of my characters.
Oh, really?
Stuff like that. Like, because it doesn't really matter what someone's eye color is, to be honest. Like,
unless it's part of the plot.
Yeah, unless it's like an important part of the plot. And like, only one of my characters who loves purple, her skin is purple, her hair is purple, her eyes are purple. So of course that gets mentioned.
Yeah.
My main character has blue eyes, but I don't know if I've ever said it. It's just that all the models on the covers for her have blue eyes. Like, it's
right.
I don't get into a lot of those details. And the nice thing is that's the things I don't have to remember. I never mention when people's birthdays are, so I don't have to remember when their birthday is. You know. I actually also, I'm one of those writers that I might describe what maybe 1 or 2 characters in an entire book are wearing. The only time usually
wait a second, somebody who is such a fashion magnet.
I know, right? I think I started out worrying that I would like completely swamp people. And actually, my earlier books, I did write more about what people were wearing, but I don't do it that much anymore, unless it's like part of like a mission, like they're wearing armor, they're wearing a stealth suit, they put in a dress to go to a ball or something like that. But I think, but not having all of those specifics actually helps a lot, because when you're writing, you don't have to remember stuff, and you don't create scenarios where you contradict. And even like if you're having someone travel, you're like, it takes about 2 weeks to get there. You don't say like it takes 9 days, because you're like, oh crap, I said it takes 10 days. You know, you just sort of like try to be arbitrary as much as possible, and it helps a lot.
Wow. So thank you. That is fascinating, because I always wondered that with people who are so prolific and have written so much. I want to get into some of the books that you've co-authored with your partner Jill. Mm-hmm. And you've got the Help My Facebook Ads Suck, which is now in 2nd edition.
Yep. And
Help My Launch Plans Suck. Ah, there it is. There's the 2nd edition. Awesome. Cool.
Yes. If you have the blue one, that's 1st edition. 2nd edition is the green one. And it's about 10,000 more words in the second.
Oh, added some extra stuff. Well, I have to pick that one up. So what inspired you? Because I mean, you've got so much fiction out there. Mm-hmm. What inspired you to want to start writing these books to help other writers?
It was in, I want to say like sometime in the spring of 2017. I was in the 20 books to 50K group, and I kept seeing people saying that Facebook advertising doesn't work. And I'm like, if Facebook advertising doesn't work, it wouldn't be one of the largest businesses on the planet. You know, like, it does work. And I felt bad for a lot of these people, because Facebook advertising is different than any other type of advertising, because normally with advertising, you're actually advertising specific, like if you're putting an ad in a paper or a magazine, you're making an ad that is just, you're just trying to directly appeal to a human who is going to see it. But Facebook, you need to convince Facebook to show your ad to people. So you have to construct your ads in certain ways, understand how Facebook wants your ad to look, and then Facebook will show it to more people and charge you less money. And that was a big learning curve for me, because in traditional advertising, you put text on the pictures. because your whole box inside of a magazine is a picture with some text on top of it. So people are like, well, I put text on the picture. And Facebook, especially back then, would actually completely deny ads with pictures on them. And so that's just an example. And now they allow it, but they still charge you more money and they show them less often, despite what people think.
Really?
Yeah, because what Facebook has happened with Facebook is they reached ad saturation back in 2016, which means they reached a point where they were showing users as many ads as they could. And if they showed any more, users would start leaving the platform. And they did a lot of examination to figure out exactly where that threshold is. And so for them, the only way to grow revenue is to either A, grow users, don't lose users, and charge more money for ads. So so one of the ways, of course, they decided to make things better is to not lose users by making sure that ads look more like regular content. And so when people post regular content, they don't put words on their pictures of their lunch and so on and so forth. But that started to change with memes. And now a regular user is actually just as likely as anyone else to post a picture with a bunch of big words written all over it. And that's actually one of the driving factors that caused Facebook to make it so that we could actually start using ads with words on them, because pictures with words on them became more common on the platform. That all means the point behind all that is saying that Facebook is a different beast when it comes to advertising, and you have to understand the platform really well to also advertise on it well. And I had, and more Jill than me actually in the early days, had spent a lot of time really understanding what the platform wants for ads, to then put your ad in front of humans. And so when I saw these people talking about how ads didn't work, I'm like, well, your ads, of course your ads aren't working. You're doing everything wrong. Which I was, of course, say nicer than that. But I realized that the best way to do it was just to write a book and say, this is how you do it. Just be instructional about it. And I'm not trying to make a lot of money off of that. It's priced at like $5. So it's just like, hey, this is 20,000 words on how you can actually have ads make money for you. And I didn't have high expectations for it. I just wanted to give people a resource. In fact, the initial version of it I released for free as PDFs on the 20 books group. Yeah. And then people said, please make this into a book so I can actually hold it in my hand and make notes and stuff like that.
I need to highlight it and mark it.
I got to highlight and scribble in the margins and all that sort of thing. That was actually the main impetus to actually get it actually turned into a book, was people saying they actually wanted it for those reasons.
Right.
And then I got people actually started to come up to me saying, like, you changed my life. I'm a full-time author now because of your Facebook ads book and stuff like that, which is just a really powerful thing to have happen and to have people say. And then they started saying, but what about all these things that have changed, And so it kind of started to snowball from there. And that's kind of why we ended up doing this. Wow. No, Stormfly, you can't walk on, no, do not walk across in front of me right now. God, cat.
But you're not writing. Normally I try to get in your writing. Now I'm going to get in the way of your podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. My desk is not clean enough right now for a cat to walk across it without catastrophe occurring.
So I have to do a callback to the title of this book, and obviously your other books for writers is that like search engine optimization? Because that's what people would probably type into Google or on Amazon.
I did actually think about that. I wanted to think of something like in a prior life to all this, I was actually a CTO, and before that was like a software architect and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I even administered and managed search platforms that were globally used by major companies that wanted to organize content. So I have a very good understanding of how natural language search algorithms work. And natural language search algorithms prefer phrases that match what people are searching for, and the average word length for a well-matching phrase is 4 words long. So there's a lot of science behind this.
Suck ads.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I'm thinking like, okay, people are probably typing in things like my ads suck or help with Facebook ads or something like that. Right. So I kind of merged what people would type with something that's kind of fun and witty and came up with that. And then we were actually kind of like really pushing, we're going to build this whole Help I'm an Author series thing, and then pandemic hit, and we're like, it felt disingenuous to sort of tell people how to make money as an author when no one knows what the future held at all.
Right.
So we kind of paused all of that. But now that things are picking up again, we're like, okay, let's start doing more of this again.
So that means there's going to be more. So wait a second, we haven't even talked about the help my launch plan. Launch plan. So.
It's got a rocket on the cover, so maybe that's why you're thinking launch.
Yeah. So that came second.
It did. And one of the things that caused us to write that book was so many people are very prescriptive about the way that they say that you should launch books. They're like, nope, you got to do this. You got to launch like this. You got to do these steps. And in my experience, a lot of people aren't very good at really looking at all of the variables and isolating specific things that they did that were actually a big part of their process. Like, for example, I'm an author. I don't believe in rapid release. I don't think rapid release works. I don't
Does
think
the author of 20 books a year.
well, I do believe that releasing a book is a very good substitute for advertising. A book is your best ad.
Love that. Yeah.
So if you can put out a lot of books, you can reduce your advertising cost because your book, the books themselves releasing and being on the charts and whatnot functions as an ad. But I don't think that rapid releases and if you build it, they will come sort of scenario. And part of the reason why I feel this way is that even the very first examples of this concept of rapid release were espoused by authors that were co-authoring with very big names. And that's not a great data sample. It's like, well, you can't isolate whether or not your association with this big name versus rapid release. There's no way to tell which of these things was a deciding factor. So, and I actually did multiple experiments with rapid release where I would release books 3 weeks apart, 4 weeks apart, 5 weeks apart, 6 weeks apart, while simultaneously releasing other series where it was 90 days between a book. And what I found is that there was no difference in the performance of books by doing this. In fact, I found that sometimes that if there was any difference, it was that the rapid release books did not perform as well as the ones that came out with more time between them.
Wow.
Yeah. And actually other big authors that I talk with, like ones that are making $1 million a year, they also do roughly a 90-day interval between books in a given series.
Wow. That's fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah.
So obviously I have to buy this.
Yeah. And so but that doesn't mean that rapid release will never work. It might work great for some people.
Right.
But but some people can't do that. And actually one of the things I really think is terrible, I think the worst thing an author could do is work like for a year and a half, build up a series and rapid release it and have no follow through.
Yeah. Because you set expectations for the reader that's not manageable.
Yeah. And so what I believe very, very strongly is that consistency is far more important than anything else. And I think because it's all about setting expectations, like you just said. And so what I do is I talk to people about like, what does your series release plan look like? What does your 5-year release plan look like? And there's even spreadsheets and worksheets in there that Jill and I put together that say like, what's your life look like? Do you raise kids? Do you care for an elderly parent? And part of that is to make people understand that like, hey, not everybody can be Mal or Amanda Lee or Michael Anderle and pump out, 40 books a year. You have other things in your life and it's okay if you can't do that. And if you can't, you have to recognize that and not kill yourself trying to write 1 billion books, and then work out a plan that will work for you with your life situation to put out the number of books that you can put out.
Wow. So I want to keep talking about the help books because you teased us that there's more coming.
There are, yeah.
But I do want to dig into the specifics of your writing life in that you do co-author with other authors and you have standalones and all kinds of things.
Yep.
How do you decide within your parameters what's the next project, or do you work on multiple books at the same time? How does that work for you?
I work on multiple books at the same time. The co-author projects I do, they vary quite a bit. The ones the nonfiction ones are all with Jill. And we sort of like ahead of time plan out who's writing what part of the book and whatnot. And sometimes we just basically proof the other part and make sure that we agree with the facts, or, maybe I'll write something and Jill will grab screenshots. We plan all that stuff out together. For the co-author stuff, it depends on the story. Some of the stories that I've done with the co-authors they write the whole story and then I go over it afterwards. And just make sure it doesn't break any universe rules. And I fill in any gaps. Like they're like, I don't know what the technology would be that they'd use here or something like that. So I fill that in. Other ones, we actually do chapter by chapter. Some of the ones we do chapter by chapter, we actually have no plot or no plot, no outline. I mean, we have a plot. There's just no outline for the plot. And you don't even, it's like that thing you were describing with those two authors in the boxing ring kind of thing, where like, you don't know what the other person's really going to write until you read it. Then you've got to come up with something that goes along.
Is it like chapter to chapter round robin?
It's like chapter to chapter.
Oh, I love that. That is always a fun way to write.
Yeah, it is really fun to write that way. It takes longer though. So sometimes as one of my co-authors, we've done 9 books together, and we've done ones like that. We've done ones where she writes the whole thing and then I go over it. And we've done ones where we do like a detailed outline and then write to that. So it can really depend on just even living situation, like or life situation. Like for Lisa, one of my co-authors, she broke her hand. And so she she had to like limit how much she could write, and she did a lot of stuff dictating, and she needed an outline for that. So we did the outline because, you know, the situation had changed for her. But yeah, I can typically work on a project while I'm working on a co-author project as well. So that works out pretty well for me. And a lot of it really, to be honest, the thing that used to drive the schedule was the 90-day pre-order limit with Amazon.
Right.
You know, so I had like at one point 13 series running. So at one point, I think I had like 13 or 14 pre-orders up at once with Amazon that all had to be done within 90 days, which was pretty harrowing. So that drove a lot of times. It was just the tyranny of the urgent, like whichever thing had to be written next was the thing that got written next. And now it's a lot more, I can be a lot more reflective and think about what I want to write, because we've got the year-long pre-order now. So it lets you sort of make a pre-order, because I'm a very firm believer in pre-order, because the best time to capture someone to buy your next book is when they just finished the prior book and you have them on a high. So that's what I do. So, but now I have so much time that I can like make everything a year out for the pre-order and then finesse it later on. So
do you ever you talked about the year that you did, 40 plus books in a year. Did you ever reach a point of exhaustion where, I mean, was it that it wasn't as enjoyable and you didn't get a chance to savor it? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was August and September of 2018. I was at a point where I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore.
Like not write anymore.
Yeah, I was like, I've destroyed like my favorite thing by just turning into this nose to the grindstone thing. And I knew it. That's actually why I decided. I actually took a 2-month break at the beginning of 2019, and I planned that out with all my pre-orders and everything, because I'm like, I just can't keep going at this pace. That was pretty major burnout that I had happen there. I've suffered like minor burnout a few times where I'm just like, I just need a week. I just need to take some time and like refill the well and like watch fun movies and play video games, and absorb creative things to really do more again. But that August of 2018 though is still an amazing achievement of mine. We were at Disney for a week, and I still wrote 200,000 words that month.
Well, at Disney.
Well, I mean, over across the whole month, but I didn't do that much while I was at Disney.
Okay.
It was really like a 3.5 week month, and I did 200,000 words, and I revised 50,000 words in a co-author book as well. So, yeah, it was actually it was 80,000 words in a co-author book that I revised and went through as well. So that was, I can kind of look back at it and say like, wow, I did that thing, and no, I'm never doing that again at the same time.
Once was enough.
Yeah, it's both like a source of pride and a cautionary tale all at the same time.
Before I get back into the teaser on what you and Jill are doing on, so you have co-authored with other authors.
7 or 8.
7 or 8. What's the difference between the co-authoring that you've done with other authors and the co-authoring that you've done with your partner?
I mean, if I piss off my partner with like rude comments, not that I'm rude.
There's a couch to sleep on or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or meals might not appear the way they normally do. Jill's a cook and I'm not a cook, so I am like totally at her mercy for whether or not I get fed. I'm one of those people that like if food wasn't put in front of me, I wouldn't eat, and I'd probably eventually die. Very important. My life depends on it, I guess. But no, I guess like there's higher stakes. Like you have to not say things that would offend your partner. But I feel like you should probably do that all the time in your communications.
In general, yeah.
In some regards, it's actually easier because I know what would bother Jill. I know what kind of feedback would cause Jill to be like, like, how could you say that to me? Or I really worked hard on this character and stuff like that. So even though I'm probably more careful with Jill, I'm actually also able to be more careful with Jill, which is sort of an advantage. Okay. Whereas with other co-authors, I found myself once or twice getting in arguments I didn't realize I was going to get into because I didn't realize that a particular thing I said was a soft spot or sore spot for them.
Right.
So that was a bit of a process. And Jill really knows my work process. I'm the sort of person, I do my best work and my fastest work at the last minute. But I've done tests and like I've written some books in as little as 5 days, like a 70,000 word book in 5 days. And my readers will say that some of those are some of my best books, that I've ever done.
They're just pure right from the heart, right?
Straight raw. And it's like, and the great thing too is when you write a book in 5 days, you don't forget anything. You remember the entire book as you're writing it. So all the details are fresh in your head, which actually helps a lot. So I realized sort of in doing that like just taking a long time to write a book doesn't necessarily make it better. And that was sort of when I realized that I do really good work right at the last minute, but not everybody does. So some of my co-authors find that to be incredibly stressful and don't enjoy that at all. So you have to keep that in mind too. And Jill knows my process. She knows that if she writes a book and I go back over it, I'm probably going to go over it 5 days before it comes out, kind of thing.
Okay.
Is how I'll do it. And so she's sort of mentally prepared for that, which is useful as well.
Yeah, because especially if she really pre-plans, that could drive a person crazy, right?
Yeah, it could.
So you do, I know you do the 5 hour the sprints on a regular basis. So you're regularly doing that. Does Jill write in a similar fashion, or like, do you guys write in the same space? How do you divide that up?
I could write in the same room with Jill. She can't write in the same room as me because I'm a fiddler. I'm always making ticking noises and fiddling with things and stuff like that, and that drives her bonkers.
She's got to have the noise canceling headphones and not be able to look at you.
Exactly. So she has she rather writes at the kitchen table, or she has an office in our sunroom. So she writes in one of those two places. Well, then she can write in bed. I can't write in bed. That's not a thing I can do.
Right.
So she actually usually is in my streams with me and sprints along with everybody, but she's also like a really good early morning writer. So lots of times, like by the time 10 o'clock is rolled around, because I take Eva to school in the morning and stuff like that, and have like I'm out in the garden, water my plants, and usually by the time I'm done all of that and I'm ready to write, she's already got like 2,000 or 3,000 words down.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Awesome. So I think we've teased the listeners enough. So the help. What do you call in the series? Help.
I call it the Help I'm an Author.
Help I'm an Author, which I love.
Yeah, right?
So, but you've got some.
A lot of authors really resonate with that.
Help. Yeah, that does feel so. Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, I get you.
Yep.
You've got. You were talking before we started recording that you've got a forthcoming marketing, maybe not a book, but a mini series within the series.
Yeah, so right before pandemic, we were actually going to release that book, Help My Marketing Plan Sucks. And then we, like I mentioned, we stopped doing a lot of push when the pandemic hit, because we didn't want to make people pay for advice that might not work anymore.
Right.
So and most of what the stuff about the launch plan Facebook books where I felt was going to be perennial, but I didn't really want to give people new advice, especially on marketing, because marketing, more than like the mechanics of doing ads or the mechanics of doing a launch, marketing is very dependent on a lot of such things. So we ended up not releasing that book. And then the more I thought about marketing and sort of the tactics and whatnot, I realized it's too much to put in one book. You almost have to break it down to multiple things. So we're going to do ones on like how to market on specific platforms. Like, how do you market on Pinterest, for example? How do you market on Facebook? How do you market on Instagram? And like, what's a marketing strategy on these platforms that you would use to both with paid ads and with free content to build people? How do you market Kickstarter? Stuff like that, like all these different things that we would break it down into, and some of them might get bundled together into one book. We'll see how big the topics actually are when they come together. But
like, how do you market visual social media, which is Pinterest, which is Instagram, which is
it might work. It might end up being something like that as we put it all together. But there's also things too. Like, I started polling authors and like, what are the things you really want to know? And one of them was the one that surprised me the most was authors wanted to know how to network.
Ask an extrovert.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, hey, you come to the right place, because I love networking with other authors, and they want to know how to network with authors and how to network with fans. And so, and I think I do both of those things pretty well. I have like a super active Facebook fan group. It's only got like 800 or 900 people in it. But I post maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and my fans post between 5 and 10 times a day. And
because it's them connecting, right?
It's them connecting and building the community and all that sort of thing. And we have a Discord server where the fans are always in there chatting and stuff like that. I've even got one fan, she does a space weather report every day. So it's about like what the solar wind's like, how many fireballs have come through the atmosphere, what rocks are nearby that you need to watch out for, if there's any solar flares or anything like that going on. So it's really fun doing all that. So I feel like I've got some expertise in how to build all of that up. And then also on how to network with other authors too. So how do you find other authors? How do you interact with them? You know, even because I think a lot of people that are starting out, they're like, well, I've only got a mailing list of 500 people. Can I do network newsletter swaps? I'm like, it doesn't hurt to ask. You know, and like there's lots of people like me, like I never ask anyone how big their newsletter list is when they offer to do a swap with me. I'll do a swap with anyone.
Well, it's the engagement too. They can have a smaller group of people, but they're really, really engaged. That
exactly.
Make a bit bigger difference than, hey, 10,000 people, but
but no engagement. Yeah. And actually, I kind of feel that way. I feel like a lot of times people who have a smaller list might have a more personal relationship with more of their fans than maybe someone who has a massive list. Because when you have started having a massive audience and a massive list, you don't have the time to form personal relationships. So your recommendations might actually not hold as much weight as someone with a smaller list. So, and I want to explain, help people with that and say, like, here's a strategy for asking, here's a strategy for building your own newsletter and stuff like that. So here's a strategy for meeting authors in your genre and connecting with them and stuff like that.
So I have to ask a question, because you've gone to so many different conferences and connected with different authors in different ways. Do you find when you go to a conference, how much of the time are you actually in the sessions watching what's going on in this official schedule? How much time is spent at the bar or in the hallways in connecting with the other authors?
Oh, I feel terrible saying this. I don't go to any sessions at conferences other than the ones that I host. I go to mine because I'm talking.
Well, you have to. You've signed up for them.
Yeah. I guess I shouldn't say that. I maybe go to like one or two other sessions, but I find that like I'll watch them later, because most of the conferences you go to now, like 20 books, it's all on YouTube later.
Yeah, you watch it by yourself rather than connecting.
Yeah, I'll watch it by myself and whatnot later. But like I'm only going to be around these people for this small amount of time, so I want to maximize that. So I basically spend, like at 20 books to Vegas last year, I spent the entire time at the bar.
Pretty much that every time I saw you was probably at the bar.
Yeah, I was just I sort of held court at the bar is kind of what I did. And it was great. Like at times we actually had like the sessions up on a laptop, because they were all streamed live on YouTube.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. We might actually be watching some of the sessions and talking about them and stuff like that and having conversations about it. But I don't like being like in a room where I have to sit and be quiet and stuff like that when I'm watching sessions. It works well for me, unless I'm just purely by myself. But yeah, I love the networking. I love reaching out to people. Like I've gotten onto so many podcasts, met so many people that I've like swapped with. I've met some of my co-authors or people I just met in restaurants and in the hallways at conventions and stuff like that. So it's there's no substitute for those connections that you make just wandering around a convention, talking with people and meeting folks.
So I have to ask then. So, I mean, I know you're having fun. You're doing the 5-hour sprints and connecting a lot of people from around the world, but you're probably really eager to get out there and get back to a somewhat post-pandemic world.
God, am I ever? So much. InkersCon, which Alessandra Torres runs, was supposed to be in June, in the first weekend of June. I was so looking forward to that.
Right.
But she couldn't get a good rate from the hotel with a smaller attendance, so she had to cancel that. But that would have been, I was like itching practically to get to that.
What do you think the next one is that you're actually planning on being at, if everything works out?
It'll be NINC will be the next one I'll get to. In September 23rd, I think is when that one
End
is.
of September, and then probably 20 Books Vegas.
Yep, 20 Books Vegas as well. Yeah, I'm speaking at both of those. So
yeah, awesome. So
it feels so far away. September still. Like
I know, and I was like, I've got to get my vaccination. So marketing that series, when is that going to be relaunched? When are you planning on doing more of that?
I think it's probably going to come out in probably the next month and a half to 2 months is when the first books are going to start rolling.
Cool.
Yeah. Jill and I are also doing another angle on all of this too, is we're actually producing a lot of video content now. We're actually working on building all of that up, and we're going to create a subscription service where people can like watch training videos on things, can have access to webinars that I do and stuff like that. Like just yesterday, I did a basic webinar on Facebook ads, just walking through how to create a Facebook ad, what the things on the screen mean and stuff like that. And even as fast as I talk, it still took 2.5 hours to get through it all, because there's a lot there. And we had like 55 people come to that webinar.
Wow.
So we want to do more stuff like that, because there's so many topics we could do things on, like even like how do you pick keywords when you're making a book on KU? That's like a 45-minute topic, even, is picking keywords and how to research keywords and stuff like that. So yeah, we have a website like thewritingwives.com, and we're gonna start putting up all this content there, making so people can subscribe.
The Writing Wives?
Thewritingwives.com.
Wives.
Two wives who write. So we're the Writing Wives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a perfect segue, because I was going to say, well, where can people find out more about your fiction, your nonfiction? So obviously thewritingwives.com is where we can find you and Jill and this Help I'm an Author and associated content.
Yep.
Where else can we find you online?
If you just search for Malorie Cooper on Facebook, you'll find me. And I'm a pretty active person on Facebook. I'm always chatting with people. You can reach out to me on Messenger. I love to chat with authors and help them with anything they might need help with, or give them suggestions. And my fiction books can all be found at aeon14.com. That's AEON 14.com.
Awesome. Malorie, thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
You bet. It's been great. Thanks.
So many things to talk about in relation to conversation with Mal. The first thing was, I remember just how energized and pumped up I was after getting off the call with Mal. Now, I think we probably chatted for 15 or 20 minutes before we started recording. We had a great conversation. It's like, wow, I wish I could have recorded that. Then we had the official recorded conversation. And then when we finished, I think there was another 15 or 20 minutes that we just kept talking, because we could have talked for hours and hours. And I'm very energized by the energy that Mal puts out into the world. And I want to reflect on that. Mal talked about, holding court at the bar at 20 Books Vegas, 2019, I guess was the last time I saw her in person. And that's so true. There are certain people that put that positive energy out there. And they're the kind of people that I get energy from. Now, I actually consider myself an introverted person. I know I can be very social. I'm actually very shy in a group setting. So when I walk into a bar like that, I'll try to gravitate to, if I recognize someone, I'll try to, go over and not interrupt their conversation, but just go kind of be close to them and say hi or whatever. But for the most part, if I walk into a big crowd, I will go sit in the corner by myself and hope somebody comes to talk to me. But then once I'm in it, once I'm there, once I'm on stage, once I am in the group or part of a group or whatever, then it comes out. Then the extra, maybe I'm an omnivert. I'm an introverted extrovert. And I feed off of the power that people like Mal put out into the world. I feed off of the power that so many people put out into the world. And I really love the positive energy that she constantly expresses. And that's one of those things that I find when I'm interacting with a person like that, I'm getting this creative energy. So as I mentioned, when we finished the first conversation, and that was at least a month, maybe a month and a half ago that we had the original conversation that was recorded. And then just today, as I was editing this and putting it together, I was reinvigorated. And I was like, man, I want to talk to Mal again. That was really awesome. And so that's just one thing that certain people have that effect on me, which is really, really cool. And actually going to conferences in person does have that effect on me. And I really, really do truly miss it. And we did talk about that at the beginning of the interview. The second thing I wanted to reflect on about the conversation with Mal was Mal talking about how she does her best work and her fastest work at the last minute. So obviously we didn't talk about this a lot, but we could have probably gone on for an hour about that. But I am a serial procrastinator. I'm a master procrastinator. And my partner Liz is very similar to me in that way, which is why we probably get along so well, because we don't nag the other person for leaving things to the last minute, because we really truly understand that that's how things work. I suppose that's why I've got 3 books up for pre-order right now, and I'm maybe 40% of the way through writing one of them. The other one I haven't started doing anything other than some outlining notes. The other one, the other 2 I've only done a few sort of outlining notes. But there's nothing like the motivation of knowing that there's that deadline that I can't change, that I need to get that out there. And I feed off of that energy, because if you set, I was just talking to another writer friend who just published a book today that had been sitting there, had been finished, everything was ready to go for years. And it's kind of funny when you don't have a deadline, when you don't have a specific someone waiting for something, it can just linger, it can just sit there. And so for me, when Mal talked about that, doing the best work at the last minute, it really resonated with me, and it really reminded me of the importance of putting those tight deadlines. And those tight deadlines are usually related to having to have something done booking an editor by a certain date, having a pre-order up that you can't move, that you need to fulfill, or other things. I was even thinking about that 3-hour workshop that I did for the New Brunswick Federation of Writers, and just how it was a 3-hour workshop, and I think it was the morning of that I pulled everything together. All the slides, put everything together. I actually took a combination of 3 different presentations, and I kind of merged them together. But it was the pressure of knowing, well, I've only got 2 hours to get this done. Let's get it done. And put it together, and people seem to be pleased. So that seems to be, I suspect, that I do my best work when it's a last-minute project, just like Malorie. So I hope that you enjoyed those reflections. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Malorie. I'd love to hear your reflections on what you learned, what you got from the conversation, because there was so many amazing things we talked about. I didn't even get to talk about the fact that I ordered Help My Facebook Ads Suck. I have the 2nd edition print copy in my hot little hands, I think, because I kept nagging Mal. I was like, hey, I'd like to order this. You make it available. And I can't remember if I ordered it through a local bookstore or if I just did it through an online. I can't remember. But I have that here, and I'm looking forward to digging into it and learning more and reading, as well as some of the other great books in the Help I'm an Author series. If you want to leave reflections for this episode or other ones, you can leave them over at starkreflections.ca. You can also @ me. I'm at Mark Leslie. If you would like to support the podcast, one of the best ways you can support this podcast is you can share it with a friend that you think would find value in the Stark Reflections podcast. You can also leave a review on the podcatcher of your choice, and if you're so inclined and you're looking for extra content, you can become a patron over at patreon.com/starkreflections, where for as little as $1, $3, $5 a month, you can get access to additional bonus reflections on other podcasts and other content that I share with my awesome patrons. Well, that's it for episode 195 of the Stark Reflections podcast. Until the next episode, until episode 196, yes, I can do math. That will be the next episode. This is Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you great writing and good Stark Reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.